our voice and our unique perspective is what makes each of us, it's what makes our readers drawn to us, and it's what draws new readers in, and it's why people come to us, because every one of us has got a chocolate chip cookie recipe. Like, we all have that, but it's our story and our telling of it that really, I think, makes us so unique and so valuable, and what separates us and why people, are drawn to one site versus another.
That was Rachel Matthews, and this is episode number 107 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the blog Namely Marley, and I am your host, and this is the Chopped Podcast. This is the podcast designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. My goal every week is to share with you interviews, thoughts, stories, everything related to food blogging, so we can all learn together about what works with food blogging, and maybe even a little bit about what doesn't. Just a quick shout out to everyone who's sent me messages via email or social media or whatever. So you're telling me that you're loving the podcast, and I just want you to know it means a lot to me to hear that. I love it. So in fact, if you're finding the Chopped Podcast to be of great value to you, please take a moment and head over to iTunes or Stitcher and leave a review or subscribe. And you can also tell a friend about it too. These are all the kinds of things that really help out the show a lot. So thank you so much. Okay, let's get to today's episode. Today I'm talking to Rachel Matthews. She's of the site A Southern Fairy Tale, and I first met Rachel at a food blogging conference a few years ago. She was actually speaking on a panel about the value of storytelling as a blogger, and obviously, it stayed with me for years. So it was a great panel, great discussion, very engaging. I took a lot of notes, let me just say that. So as much as I have a passion for writing, and I don't know that I always have the art of storytelling down. I think I'm too much of this very factual person, just the facts, ma'am, kind of thing, let's get straight to the details. That's just kind of my thing. And in fact, my friend Julie of the site, The Little Kitchen, she encouraged me to take the personality assessment that's called Strengths Finder. And she was right. It was a very good assessment. I'm just kind of obsessed with it. I really love it. But I learned that one of my strongest characteristics is that I am an activator. What that means is I love to take a thought and turn it into action. It just gives me, a big thrill, I guess. I don't know. But one of the downsides of this characteristic is that I'm oftentimes impatient. And I think that impatience in me also turns into this thing about stories. Like, I just kind of want to get to the point. I don't really want to spend a lot of time going into the details. And in fact, and sometimes when reading novels, I'll actually skip to the end of the book and read the last page. I know the people in my book reading club think I'm crazy, but I just want to know where it's going. Talk about impatience. I know, it's just so weird. It's really bad. But anyway, this is why I felt like I needed to talk with Rachel. I was kind of hoping maybe you might feel the same way too, that, that what is the deal with storytelling, and what are some ways that we can learn to do it better, and why is it important? And so Rachel and I talk a lot about all of that. We also go into some other blogging related stuff too. So Rachel has some amazingly good advice for growing your audience, and just some other blogging tips as well that I think you're going to love. She's just a very passionate, obviously she's got the art of storytelling down, and you can just hear the passion in her voice when she's talking. So it's a really good conversation. I hope you love it. I know there's so much going on right now. It's the holidays, and there's so many other distractions going on at this time. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your very important day to listen to the Chopped Podcast. It means a lot. Okay, you all, let's get straight to that feature interview with Rachel Matthews. Hey everyone, I'm so happy to have Rachel Matthews. She's of the site A Southern Fairy Tale, and she's on the show today. Hey Rachel, welcome to the Chopped Podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. And, I had the opportunity to meet you a few years back at, I'm trying to think, I think it was Blogger Food, where you were on a panel speaking about, it was the one in Austin a couple years ago.
It was the one in Austin, yes. And we talked about using your voice to tell your story.
Yes, I could just remember sitting back and taking a lot of notes and just thinking, how provocative the idea was of just like using your own voice on your blog. I think that's so cool.
Yes, it was a fun panel.
Yes. And I think it's so easy for all of us as we get out there and we're blogging. We see other really influential voices, and then we just start mimicking that. I mean, I'm not saying that in a critical way. I'm saying I've seen myself do that, and I think it's just an easy thing to have happen. I call it voice creep, where, we just kind
Yes.
of slowly take on other people's voices around us.
Yes. And you don't even realize you're doing it. And it's so funny because my husband calls me a chameleon, because when I will travel and I spend time with friends like Gina at Skinny
Yes.
Taste, we went on a cruise together, and she and her husband have these very strong accents. And my husband was like, I can tell when you have been with Gina on this trip because your voice changes. So your accent changes. And then when, you're with your other friends that are more Southern, your accent gets stronger and deeper. He said, and then when you're with people like Summer of A Spicy Perspective, who, she has a very modulated voice, and in her tone, there's not a lot of accent. He said, you start to speak very just without a lot of accent, that, your cadence changes. And I think the same thing happens when I read someone a lot. You sort of start to emulate what their writing style is.
Right.
And it's such an easy thing to do. And it's something that, while it's meant to be very complimentary, or it really is like, I'm investing so much in you, it's something you have to be so careful about.
Yeah.
Because our voice and our unique perspective is what makes each of us, it's what makes our readers drawn to us, and it's what draws new readers in, and it's why people come to us, because every one of us has got a chocolate chip cookie recipe, or a pot roast recipe, or, your grandmother's apple pie. Like, we all have that. There's so few new things under the sun, but it's our story and our telling of it that really, I think, makes us so unique and so valuable, and what separates us, and why people, are drawn to one site versus another. But yeah, it's incredibly easy to admire someone and then start to try to write like them. And then even if it's written well, it still kind of rings false because it's not you.
Oh, I just love that. And I really want to get into that a little bit more. But first, I think it would be great if you could talk a little bit about your site, and maybe even a little bit about what caused you to start it in the first place.
It's kind of funny because I have been blogging since 2007, which is like back when Moby Dick was a minnow.
Dinosaurs,
on the internet.
yeah.
Yes. It's like a grandmother. I feel like I need like a little walker and cane or something. When we moved to Corpus Christi, which is where we lived for 7 years, I was newly pregnant with my son, and it was a very difficult pregnancy. I had hyperemesis, and I was literally like living on the bathroom floor, and I had a 2.5-year-old as well. And my husband would have to leave work to come and help me with them. My mom would come visit to try to help. I couldn't function. I was so ill. And then when I finally started feeling better, we didn't know anyone. I had no friends. So I looked to the computer. And my dad was living in Australia. We had family kind of all over everywhere. And so I would Skype, or I would get on mom sites that are, no longer in existence. And I would tell stories, or I would share recipes. And somebody said to me once, you really should start a blog to share all this. And I went, what's that? And they, kind of explained it to me. And I said, why on earth would I want to do that? Because why would anyone want to read about somebody else's life online? Like, that makes no sense to me. Well, joke's on me, because now 10 years later. It just made no sense. But then I thought, okay, that could be kind of neat. And so one of the women that was there said, here's Blogspot, here's how you do it, set it up. My first site is still in existence with the cartoon header and everything, because I just think it's something that should be preserved. And I started sharing recipes and stories, and I would get, a message from my dad's dad in Kentucky, or from my dad in Australia, or from my mom, or just different family members. And then the people online, we were such a community back then, very unique, because it's so different now. But you went to people's blogs and their sites to read about their families and to catch up, because there wasn't Twitter.
Yes.
There wasn't Facebook.
Or Instagram.
There was nothing. Or Instagram, there was nothing. And so that was how we kept up. And I loved it because I realized I've always loved writing, and I've always loved storytelling, and I've always loved being in the kitchen. And in my previous to having children, I worked in restaurants for ever, it seems like. All the way high school, college, and after, until going on maternity leave and never coming back from maternity leave with my oldest. That it gave me an outlet to share all those things. And also, I am not a scrapbooking person. Like, I am not. If you put papers and markers and stamps and all this stuff in front of me, I will look at you like you've lost your mind, and I will have no idea what to do with it. You're like, I got nothing. Whereas if you put me in a kitchen and say, here's a bunch of ingredients, I'm like, sweet, let's do this. I can have so much fun.
Yes.
But what I've realized over time, and what my goal at that point was, because there was no monetization, this was not something where you were building a business. I wanted this to be a love story to everyone reading it from me, but also to my children, because someday they can go back and they can look at their lives from my perspective as we were living it, instead of me being 70 years old and telling it to them. And, memories fade and time does, but there are some posts on my blog that are hidden now because they're a little bit more personal. And my daughter's almost 13, my son's 10. There are some things on there that would embarrass them because their friends do know what I do, and they do Google me and they Google my kids. And those were sort of, at the time, those were funny to tell, and it was okay because at that point in time, it was my story. But now that they're getting older and they are online, it's not so much my story anymore. It's just they can still read those things later, but I don't want to embarrass them now.
Do you think there'll be a time you'll ever republish them then?
Probably when they are older and it's not so much teenagers looking at things, when they're older and they can go back and read it and say, I'm absolutely comfortable with this story being online because it could help somebody or could give somebody a laugh, or I think it's hysterical.
Yeah.
And at that point, I would absolutely republish them. But, right now we're just in this tenuous stage of life where you just don't know how things, and albeit they are very comfortable and they are very used to their, lives being online and their pictures and their stories, I still feel like there's certain things that I do need to protect just due to the ages that they are.
That's the complicated thing about being a parent and also having a blog. There are those kinds of issues you have to think about.
Yes. And I sometimes, even with pictures, I'll say, are you good with it? Because it's okay. And most of the time they'll say yes. And stories, sometimes my daughter will say, well, could you maybe take that part out? Like everything else is fine, but maybe just not that. And absolutely, of course. Whereas my son is like, Mom, put me on the internet.
Oh, that's
Look
cute.
at me. Let me make a pose, or hey, come take a picture of me making scrambled eggs. Or, I spoke at a conference this past weekend and I called him and he goes, Mom, you're not here. And I'm so sad you're not here. And I was like, oh, baby, you miss me? Well, I miss you so much. He goes, no, I'm making pasta all by myself for the first time and you're not here to take pictures and put it on the internet. And I was like, oh my Lord. Seriously? That's why you miss me, because I'm not there to put it on Instagram, because my husband does not do any social media of any way, shape, or form. I mean, he's got a Facebook account and he might check it once a year.
Yeah.
Like he's not that guy.
Yeah.
So, and my son's like, well, because you're not here to put it on Instagram so everyone can see me doing this. And I'm like, you go from this like lovey-dovey feelings just going, well, shit, thanks.
What am I, like a selfie stick? I mean, come on.
Exactly. Like I'm just your social media manager, apparently.
Yes.
I'm so sorry I wasn't there. We'll redo it. But I love that because they're kind of following the tradition that, because I grew up cooking with my granny. Because when I was younger, and I know some places still do this, but when I was in school, starting in kindergarten, they were half days. It wasn't a full day. And my mom was a school teacher. My dad had a full-time job, and my grandparents lived, I'd say 10 minutes from us. So she was the one that would get me, and I would go with her, and she would make lunch for me. We'd have lunch together. We'd play card games. We'd play dominoes, but it was always cooking. And all of our, every Sunday we were at their house for dinner, and all of our holidays were with them. And so I grew up with her. And then my dad was the breakfast guy in our house. We had homemade, sausage biscuits for breakfast before school, or pancakes or waffles or bacon or any of this. And then my mom was the slow cooker queen because she was an elementary school teacher, and then she had to come home, and she was mom as well. So she, everybody, these were all like a little different facets of what developed my love of food.
Yeah. Do you think food blogging was your way of kind of sharing that same experience that you had with your family, with your readers?
Yes. And, I love it because that is how I grew up. So that was my norm. But then now that, the world is a wider place because we can reach so many different people, and going to conferences and traveling, I'm seeing that there's an entire generation that didn't grow up with anything other than microwave dinners, or didn't grow up with parents that knew how to cook. And home ec in so many places was taken out of the schools. And so where that used to kind of fill that gap, to teach you to sew or to do dishes or how to cook, there is a gap that these people just didn't know. They didn't know how to do it. And so for them, it's completely foreign that I have handwritten family recipe cards, or that I've been making, my Texas sheet cake that has been in our family for generation upon generation. And I know the history of it, and I know why, it's made, and I know all of it. And they don't have that. So for me, being able to share home and family recipes or things that we're actually cooking that I feel are approachable, and the people who maybe didn't grow up with a cooking background, like they can go to my site and see things, and they can look at it and go, all right, I can do that. And then to have my kids sort of following in the same footsteps.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so you talk about, at the beginning how you were really kind of doing this as a hobby. Was there a point when you realized, okay, I think I can do this? I mean, this could be a job.
Yes, there were two instances I think that were kind of like the big light bulbs for me. And one was the first time a brand reached out to me through a PR company and said, and I mean, this was
Yeah.
so, I mean, oh my gosh, I want to say it might even have been like 2008, 2009. And they reached out and just said, we absolutely love what you do. And it was craft. And they said, we love this. We love, we'd like to send you basically a baking dish and some products and some goodies. And we would just love for you to use it to make one of your family's recipes or a twist on it, share it. And then we'd love to give, you the same to give away to your reader. And I was like, say what? Say what? You want to give me something for doing what I love to do online? And, this was practically unheard of.
Right.
Like that hadn't really happened yet. And I told my husband, he goes, somebody's going to send, okay, that's weird, Rachel. And I said, I know, but that's kind of cool, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, but that's still kind of weird. And so that was one of those where I went, okay, this is a way to connect. And the next one was the first time I got invited to speak at a conference because someone said, we love what you're doing and we really would like you to come and share this with others. And I thought, okay, this is so cool. Like, I love what I'm doing. I'm following passions that I didn't even know I was ever going to be able to follow and do something with and share it. And now they want me to come and talk to other people about it and being seen, not really so much as an expert, but just somebody that's doing it and has kind of found a little place. And that was huge. And I loved doing it and I loved meeting people. And one of the coolest things, and I think one of the reasons that I am so very passionate about trying to maintain, even though our voices do evolve over time and that's fine, it's okay because, we grow, we change,
right.
we evolve. I mean, that's life, and our sites sort of do the same. I'm so strongly passionate about maintaining your voice is because one of the greatest compliments that I've received, and I think it's one of the greatest ones that you can give a blogger, is to meet someone and spend some time talking to them. And I had somebody do this. We talked for several hours over dinner, and it was a conference. Had a great time, and they emailed me later and said, I just want you to know that you are exactly who I thought you would be upon reading your blog. They said, I met you, and now when I go back and read stuff, I hear your voice in my head, and you are exactly who you are in person as you are on your blog. And I was like, that's huge.
That is.
And I think especially now, because so much, people talk about the fake booking or the perfect lives, and that are portrayed, and it's almost a standard that's impossible to live up to. Well, lives aren't perfect. They're real. And so, sometimes I'll put something up and go, this is exactly what is going on in my house right now, and I'm ready to tear my hair out. And I'll write about it or do that. But I want people to understand, like, this is just our life. And while I don't share everything, because I do believe, at least for me, there is a sense of oversharing, and I do believe something should remain private, especially since my husband really doesn't do social media and all this for his job as well. There are just certain things that should stay private.
Right.
But I want, I don't want people to just look at me and think, oh my God, everything's just so perfect, it's great, and it's sickening. Like, I want them to, experience the ups and downs and the fun and the joys. And I want that to maintain so that the people in my real life, the teachers at my kids' school, when they come in the workroom and I'm in there working, and they're like, oh, I made this and it was so great, but, this didn't work, or I had a problem with this, like, how can I fix that, or what can I do? Or they say, I loved reading your family story about, this dish, and then I made it, and now my family is sharing your family story.
Wow, that's cool.
I love that. I think that's such an incredibly powerful thing, but I also think it's so very important to live your real life, not only online, but in person. Like, it's okay if somebody sees me having a bad day, and it's okay if they read about me having a bad day, because they probably can relate, and maybe they've got some way to help me resolve that because they've already experienced that too. And then there's just that one more connection.
There is just that, feels like gravity at sometimes, like this pull towards perfectionism. Isn't it strange? Like, I want everything to be perfect, and life is just not like that. And everybody gets that.
Exactly. And it is a fight, and it is a struggle. And there's nothing wrong with the people, that do put only the good stuff out there. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just, I just want to be me. And like I said, I just want, if you see me in the grocery store and you recognize my face or something, you can come up and feel like you could talk to me and say, you know what, I had a day like this, or I had that, or I loved that you wrote about it this way. And I want for my kids, because my kids are living this life too. And so when they go back 15 years from now, 10 years from now, and they're looking back over those things, they get to kind of re-experience, but it's not glossed over, because I feel like if they're going to go back and read our family history, I don't want them to think that there's anything wrong with experiencing all of life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups, the downs, because I feel like if I glossed over it and only leave the good stuff there, that might leave them with a legacy of, if I have to hide anything bad because everything always has to look perfect.
Yeah, that's really good.
I do a lot of thinking about this.
You do. You put a lot of thought into this.
I do.
Yes. Both for your readers and for your family. And I love the idea of your blog being a way for your kids to look back and see, what was mom going through at this time? That's kind of cool. Never thought about it that way.
How much did she want to just rip my hair out at this point in time when I did this? I mean, my son has had a penchant for cutting his own hair, but not cutting his hair so much as just either taking one of our razors or taking big old kitchen shears and just, he's got this real curly hair, so we do tend to keep it very, very close cropped.
Uh-huh.
So I'll just cut a curl off if it's sticking out. So he will just have these random bald patches.
Where he chops them off?
Yeah, because he's like, and I looked one day and I went, okay, well, he's got multiple scars because he is 9 million % boy and he's had his head stapled shut and he's split it open and done all these things. So there are just bald patches normally where there are scars.
Yeah.
Then you look and I'm like, pretty sure that wasn't there yesterday. I mean, I stood next to him and looked down and there've been 2 bald patches on top of his head. Why? Well, the curls were sticking out bothering me. You couldn't have come to us and said, hey, Dad, can you come cut my hair? Because we'll do that sometimes, or we'll take him. He's like, well, it's just really bothering me. I didn't want to go to school like that. But you're good with going to school with bald patches? What? I mean, son, what is wrong with you? And I'll write about that and put that on there. And it's on my Instagram. And it's this. And I love Time Hop's one of my favorite things for that. To get to look back on those. And I can show him. And he just looks at me with those little dimples and those little sparkling green eyes. And he's like, were you mad at me, Mom? Read it. Trust me. You'll see that I was not thrilled with you. It's life.
Yeah, and that's the storytelling side of the blog. I think you started out by talking about how there could be a million chocolate chip cookie recipes out there on the internet, and what is distinguishing yours from others is probably not so much the recipe, but the way you talk about it.
Yes, that's hopefully, but yes, that is, and I think that that's what all of us should strive for. At least because there are some food blogs that are literally the ingredients, the pictures, and that's their blog, and there's nothing wrong with that because there's definitely an audience for that.
Mm-hmm.
But mine very much, and I think that's why I'm drawn to reading so many of now my friends' blogs. But I also discover new ones because I love the story, and the recipe that's a bonus.
Well, you're clearly, if you were to put all of the components of blogging on the table in front of you, it seems like you probably would be drawn to the writing side more. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes. The writing, I just love it. I love words. I am a very verbose person, and my husband quite often accuses me of making up words because I just have this passion for words, and I'll throw out, I want my kids to have great vocabularies, and I was that kid that won the spelling bees and would sit and just read the spelling bee books to learn the words and the definitions, and I would totally geek out over that. And he's like, seriously, you made that word up. No, I didn't. Open up your phone. You can Google it. He goes, I can't Google it. I couldn't even spell it. I don't even know what you just said. This is a frequent conversation in my house.
And do you ever use those words in your posts?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
If it flows naturally, then I will, because sometimes it does fit. But usually some of my posts, I would say I kind of waver between just straight storytelling, and then sometimes it's a conversation. It's as if I'm sitting and talking to a friend. And it just depends on what the context of the post is or the story that I'm telling. Just sometimes there are some big words in there, but most of the time it's an everyday conversation. But I love word flow, and I love to create an image with words. Now, obviously, I love pictures and photography as well, but I think there's something incredibly powerful about being able to create a visual in someone's mind without giving them one to look at.
Wow, that's tough to do, especially in today's environment.
Yes.
So let's talk about the pictures for a minute.
Yes, let's talk pictures.
Let's talk about pictures. So did you start out your blog with photography skills already, available to you, or did you have to grow?
Oh, no. I've started, as many of us have, kind of going back and redoing some of them to highlight. And I look at some of these pictures and just go, oh, why? What were you thinking? But, most of us started either with a phone that didn't even take pictures, because that was, if you were even lucky enough to have the first iPhone. Yeah. But it was a little point and shoot with a flash in a yellow, dark kitchen. I've always loved photography, and I had family members that have done it, but I never thought it was something I could really pursue just because it was never offered anywhere. And it wasn't really offered when I was in college. And so it was just, I've always had a camera with me, and I've always taken pictures, and I've always been a documenter. But it wasn't until doing this and being able to sort of start looking at others and reading and watching YouTube videos and finding the books and finding the tutorials and realizing that if I want to do that and that's something I love, why on earth am I not doing it? Why wouldn't I follow that passion? Why wouldn't I pursue something that brings me such joy? And that's, I mean, I'm completely self-taught and completely self-failure and completely self-succeeding, you know, but I love sort of, and that's really fun too, is to show my kids, this is where I started. And now look where I'm at. And it's because I wanted to do it. It's because I found something I love and I followed it. And I love that that's a lesson that I'm getting to show them, as well as my readers, my friends, my husband, who is my biggest supporter and is the one that's like, if you need this, get it. If you want to do this, do it. Like, I believe in you, and whatever we need to do it, because you have something that should be shared. But it's all self-taught. I've got books everywhere. I'm the queen of like saving a YouTube video and watching it and pausing it and trying it and watching it and pausing it and trying it.
Do you ever think, like, you know, maybe you didn't go into this life thinking that you wanted to be a photographer, but then you got into it and you realized you loved it? Like, how many things are out there like that you don't even know about that you could be passionate about, you know?
Exactly. But if you just follow this path that somebody said, this is what you're going to do, and you go, okay, and you follow it, I mean, what possibilities are lost? What could you have possibly done that could change the world in some way? So I think if something tugs at your heartstrings, or something just causes your breath to stop because there's some spark it lights in you, oh my gosh, find that, follow it. Even if it hits a dead end, it opens up possibilities. You just never know where it's going to go. And I love this. I was going to be a teacher, and I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, and I was going to do, you know, all these things that sort of were set out for me. And my path has gone so off the rails, while at the same time, I'm still a teacher. I'm teaching my children. I'm teaching classes. I'm speaking. You know, it's crazy how it kind of comes full circle, but every day I'm teaching myself too. And I love that.
I think that sounds like some Oprah movie. I'm just sure of it. Like, I think it was like Under the Tuscan Sun or something, where she said something like, probably, oh, buying this house in Tuscany would be such a mistake. And the woman says, oh, wouldn't that be glorious? Like, maybe the mistakes are sometimes the best part, you know?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, we learn from them either way, but you just never know when that, you know, that mistake is going to be a grand mistake that actually turns out to be like the greatest adventure of your life.
I know, like, sometimes I'm so jealous of those people that, like, they know from a child they want to grow up and be a doctor. You know, like, they have just a great purpose to their life and a great trajectory. And then I feel like I'm like wandering all over the place, but it definitely makes things interesting.
It does, but don't you feel, I mean, I have great respect for those people, and they serve an incredible purpose, and God bless them.
Yes.
But sometimes don't you feel like those of us that kind of, you know, the saying, not all who wander are lost?
Yes.
Like, don't you sometimes feel like the wandering, you actually find yourself even more, and you open up all these little avenues you never knew? And I mean, there's, you know, they always talk about like so much of our brain goes unused. Well, I wonder if those of us who are wanderers and who may be a little bit, some might say ADD, maybe it's just that we just constantly are sparking new areas of our brain to life, and it's driving us just here and here and here and here and here.
Oh, that is beautiful. I just got to take a moment and soak that in. That's wonderful. I love it.
Oh,
I think there's definitely some truth to that. And I think that's one thing that kind of attracts people to food blogging, first of all. I mean, there is a wide range of areas that you can become an expert in. You know, like, there's the technical side, and then there's the artistic side, and then there's the, you know, we talked about the writing, the photography. There's just so many things that a person could, you know, a direction you could take it in and be very good at it. But I just feel like it opens up a lot of windows for people.
Oh, I agree. And God, I need to find someone that's techie, because I'm not. I joke all the time. I'm like, if I even open up the back end of my blog and try to change something, I'll break the internet. And I'm not joking in any way, shape, or form. Like, I feel like there's this red button that I can't see, but it's there. And one of these days I'm going to click it, and it's going to be like, you killed everything. The internet is done, and it's all Rachel's fault. Like,
CNN will have a report saying the hacking is linked to a computer in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Exactly. We've linked it to a small town outside of Houston, and that's where,
she pushed the red button.
Yes. I feel like it's, you know, just colorblind. I mean, it's bad. I've done things, and I have friends, thank God for wonderful friends that are sort of just pat me on the head and like, you go sit in the corner and eat the cookie and drink your milk, and I'll fix this. I gotcha. And then I bring them, I ship them plates of cookie or bacon pecan brittle, or I make them, mass amounts of lemon drop martinis. Like, I will feed you. That's what I can do. You fix this and I will feed you. I will make your Christmas treats for you. Just fix what I broke. Make it better.
Make it better. Well, that makes me think of something because I mean, we're talking about, just being human and being a blogger. And I always wonder about how people handle, we all go into these kind of funks where, maybe some days we're just absolutely loving being a blogger and other days it just feels like work. I'm just curious if you have, how do you handle when you're in a funk?
I shut everything off. I turn on podcasts and I go outside for at least an hour, whether it's in my hammock reading a book or I go for a walk for an hour and I listen to other people talk about things that drive them or that they're passionate about or causes, or I'll listen to something that will make me laugh until I'm snorting and people are looking at me like I'm the crazy lady. Which it happens frequently, and especially with some of the audiobooks that I've listened to. I mean, I've been like flat out guffawing in the middle of a grocery store. And I'm like, I apologize, but if you like to listen to things, download this because it's fantastic. I get out, I leave because sometimes I think, I have an office and a studio in our house.
Yeah.
And so I'm here. And so, it's like when you get to leave, and I remember this from the day when I would work and my husband and I both worked outside the house, we would come home and it was this unspoken agreement that we don't talk to each other for the first 30 minutes because we have been around people all day long that need us, because both of us are in supervisory positions. And it was just everybody needed. And so the drive home was a nice little, break and you could listen to whatever. But once you got home, it was like, oh God, finally my sanctuary, and we would give a kiss, but we would not speak for about the first 30 minutes. And then we would you need that time to recharge.
It's like re-entry, right?
It really is. It's like coming home from a blogging conference. As much as you love them and they're fantastic, you get home and it's like, holy cow.
I can't say another word.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't talk to me. I love you. Okay, bye-bye. Go away.
Yeah.
Like, let me just go in my corner. And, I think especially those of us that work from home, sometimes you just need to leave your home and not take the work with you. Leave it. Because if you take it with you, you're just bringing your problem, you're bringing your stress, you're bringing whatever it is, you're not allowing yourself to clear your mind. And I find that something just going out and doing it or going to the kids' school and saying, what can I do to help y'all? Can I laminate something? Can I help in the lunchroom? Can I go have lunch with my kid? Do you need to go to the bathroom and I'll, watch the phone? Like those things, just getting out and doing something for someone else and doing something that does not in any way, shape, or form involve the blog. I mean, do not go to the grocery store, because as much as I do love a grocery store for inspiration, it reminds me of work, or it reminds me that I see an ingredient and go, oh, I have this due, or I need to start brainstorming for this. Like, get out and do something completely out and away, and then come back and then open it up and put on. I like to put on. I have an absolute favorite Pandora station, and it's called the Wailing. It's the Wailing Jennies, like not Waylon Jennings, but Wailing Jennies, and it is a little bit bluegrass with a little bit of, sometimes a little bit of gospel. And it's just this wonderful bluegrassy, which is my dad's roots from Kentucky. And I love it. And it's just soothing and beautiful and so fun to listen to. And it's kind of just one of those very calming things. And I love to just have it on. And so I'll just turn that on and I'll go in and I'll always try to find one thing about my family or one thing that I can edit or that I can look at or that I can tweak that's not quite blog related, but it's like baby stepping back into the computer.
Yes.
And then I'll move on to whatever I need to do.
Oh, that's really good.
That's kind of my way. And, like this summer, my kids are getting older and my husband and I are talking that our daughter's fixing to be 13. She's in 7th grade now. And I was like, holy cow, in 3 years she's driving. In 5, she's possibly going to college and out. Oh my gosh. And so I stepped away from the blog almost essentially the entire summer. We took 12 days and we traveled Texas in the car with our kids and we went camping and we hit up lakes and rivers and spent time with, other than my posting pictures to Instagram of our trip so that, my mom wasn't like calling the police because we'd been, killed. Like, and to share those things. I mean, there was no social media. I did not take a computer. I took my big camera and I brought it out one time.
Wow.
And it was phenomenal because we came home and the kids were like, will you go ahead and book? Can we go ahead and book this cabin for next year, same time? Can we do that? Can we go back here? Mom, that was so fun. And then, throughout, if I would go into my office and be like, how long are you going to be in there, Mom? You know what? what do you guys want to do? Do y'all want to go to the park? Do y'all want to go swimming? What do y'all want to do? And sometimes they said, we want to go sit on the porch and play dominoes, or we want to go to the park, or we want to get in the kitchen and we want to make something with you. We want you to teach us how to make this without you photographing it. Like, do something. And so I said, okay. And so I kind of took a step back this summer. And now I really feel like my kids saw that I was putting them first and valuing our relationships. But it also gave me so much, it made my heart feel so good. But it also gave me all of these ideas and things that I want to do about spending time with your family and getting in the kitchen and with your kids for people who don't know how to do that. But also just remembering that, I write for them and I love what I do and I write for me, but I need to remember to be their mom, because I'm going to have a very long life where they're not under my roof.
Right.
And they don't, I'm not shuttling them to cheer and football and cheer and school and baseball and all the, that's like a second in this long life. And so I've got tons of stories I can write after they're gone, but I can't live that life without them here.
So you're saying you took a little bit of time off in the summer. Did your traffic just all go away?
No.
That's the thing.
I mean, there was a dip. Yeah, there was a dip, but the traffic didn't disappear. And the dip was not something, in the summer, it kind of dips anyway for the most part, because people are sort of doing the same thing. And it really wasn't. And I, had a couple of people that, like, well, we'd like to see your most recent numbers and this, when summer ended and came back. And I emailed this and I'm going to give you an overview. And then I'm going to explain to you why there wasn't new content for the majority of the summer. And the response from the people that I emailed like this were, and it was incredible. They're like, that's valuable. You should do that. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. So instead of just going, here's my kit, here's my numbers from blah, 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 I said, here is everything, but here's also where I'm at, where I know I will be in a couple months. And here's why it kind of went stagnant. Not that it went stagnant, but, there wasn't something being updated all the time.
Right.
And I loved how much they valued that, because I am a mom and a wife and a friend and a person. And my blog is our lives. And so if I'm not living a life, then there's nothing that's going to be there. And so now my kids are like, hey, what are we doing? When are we doing this? Mom, can we help you? My daughter wants her friends to come over so she can teach them these things. And some of the teachers at my kids' school are like, can we come over? I don't know how to do this. Can we come? We'll bring all the ingredients. Would you help us to do this? And if you want to write about it, you can. It's really, it's neat. But I'm definitely, I feel like I was in a better place for investing in my kids and myself this summer instead of working office hours, essentially. And that works for me, and it won't always work for everyone.
It sounds like you refilled the well. And if you think about any form of entertainment that's out there, whether it's a TV show you watch or whatever, oftentimes they have series, or they have series, and so there are breaks in between the series. And so why can't we as bloggers take the summer off or whatever, and a month off here and there to actually refill the well?
Absolutely. And you can do that by working your tail off for a month and getting, or a week or 2 weeks, and getting a bunch of content that you can just have pushing out through the summer. Yeah. Or you can just do what I did, which is essentially, I think I did maybe 3 or 4 posts the whole summer, just kind of walking away, because I felt like every time I would publish a new post, I needed to go through and do the social media and, doing all the other things in the newsletter and this. And so for me, that still kept me going, and it kept me in touch with my readers and my newsletter subscribers. But I didn't feel like going, oh my gosh, I got to check this and I have to look at this and I have to, okay, I forgot to pin this, or I forgot to send it to this group, or, I didn't have that. And so it really was such an enjoyable summer for us. Oh. And I definitely, I refilled my well, but I also, I don't know, I feel like every time I'm doing something, my kids are watching, and I know they are. And I feel like if I'm focusing so much on this, yes, it's my job and they know that, but they should always come first. And I always, every day, I'm very lucky. I get to take my kids to school and I get to pick them up from school. And so every day we have a conversation. What was the best part of your day? What was something you would like to change about today? What did you do today to make somebody else's day brighter? How did you make them smile? Did you help someone? These are just the conversations I have with both my kids. And I know that they listen, and sometimes, you get the, I don't know, I had lunch and we told a joke. I don't know. But I want to say about 2 or 3 weeks ago, one of our neighbors' kids had a birthday. And we, as a street, we have a very close-knit street. We have kids from pre-K all the way through, have graduated and are in college. And it's just, we all hang out together. We all cook in our driveways or in one particular driveway together instead of cooking in our back patios, because we just like to spend time together and we're very close. So one of the girls on the street turned 12, and we went over, and the mom had ordered pizza, and it was kind of later because it was after everybody had football practice and cheer. And we're sitting around, and my daughter and the birthday girl are in the garage, and they're cutting the cake. And I hear my daughter, she goes, "So Gracie, what was the best part of your day today?"
Aww.
And it was straight to my heart. And I was like, "Oh, you're listening.
Yeah.
Like, you're really paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, you're getting it. You're okay. Yay." And so I feel like everything I'm doing is teaching them, and they're gaining all those little things. So in the following my passions and writing and doing all this, they're watching me live a life that I love.
Yeah.
Even when because it's life, it brings stress, it brings this, but it's showing them that no matter what you want to do in life, you can do it. You just have to try. You just have to follow it, and you have to be not afraid to fail.
Ah, that's good. And so do you share that with your audience then? In other words, you can actually get your audience on board with that same theme just by sharing that story with them, right?
Yep. I have not shared that one on the blog yet, but I am going to. But I'm actually going to do it because my daughter's turning 13 next month. And so next month is going to be not completely about her, but I'm going to do several different, things about just as they're growing and sharing. So that is one of the things that I'm going to share, because I'm going to do basically like some letters to her, because this is a huge, 13 is big, especially for girls.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a monumental time.
Like a rite of
in
passage
our lives. And yes. And I very vividly remember turning 13, and it's crazy now to me that I have a child that's experiencing those things that I so vividly remember being that age and how I was at that age, and, the relationships and everything. So yeah, that's definitely, that's in, kind of in my little to-do is tell this story and then do this and share these. And, and then of course you get sappy because you start going through the baby pictures and like, how did my little fat roly-poly turn into this 5'5" incredible person?
Exactly. It goes so fast in some ways. In other ways, it feels like it's going to be there forever, but yeah.
Yes, like a day is a year.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's say you were talking to somebody who is started their blog and they're trying to grow their audience. What kind of advice would you give to somebody like that?
They're trying to grow their audience. I would tell them to tell people about it. To tell the people in their real life.
Yes.
To talk to their friends, to share it on Facebook, but also to go out and find who are the people that inspired you to start the blog. Like, what blogs were you reading? Reach out to that person and say, I found you and I loved what you're doing so much. You inspired me to do this myself. I just wanted to let you know, because how incredible would you feel if you got an email like that or a comment that said, I have loved what you've done. I've watched it. You're so inspiring, so I am doing my own. I would immediately go over and say hey to that person and read what they've got and try to, connect with them, but also probably share them with my audience as well and just say, you guys, this is so cool. Like, I want y'all to go over. But I know when I started, it was months before I told my family, other than like a very immediate, like before I told people, the IRL people, that I was doing this, because not that I was ashamed, but it was just so odd. And it really felt so sort of like giving someone your diary and going, here, why don't you read this?
Yeah.
And then share it with your friends, and then share it with your friends, and feel free to tell me anything you want to about how I'm doing it wrong. Go ahead. It was, because that's really what it's like. And we get those people, they're like, you're doing this completely wrong. No, thank you. I appreciate that. You're so great. But it happens, because I just feel like there's some people that are just sitting angry. They're like, I envision them like the little Angry Birds, and they're just pecking at their keyboards, just like, yee! Yes. Like they just have, it brings them just this perverse pleasure to put somebody else down. But on the flip side, you do get people that, say, I've been making this recipe for my family, ever since you shared it 5 years ago, and it's our family tradition and we love it. Or thank you so much because, my grandmother made this. And like so many Southern grannies, they didn't write recipes down. They just knew how to make it. Yes. And, they'll say, oh my gosh, my granny made this and never wrote it down, and she died and we never had a way to make it. And now I found it because of you. And maybe it's not 100%, but they figured out how to change it to make it as close as they possibly could get. And so, it's giving somebody back a legacy.
I think it's interesting that you say that, because I do think you're right that friends and family, that could be a really great resource for us as food bloggers. And I think, I know that for me personally, I don't often tap into that, but then I have some family members who have been kind of passionate and will say, oh, I talked to so-and-so about your blog. I'm always so appreciative of that. And so I think, man, I actually should reach out to them a little more regularly.
Well, Absolutely. And look at, for your family members that are online, like they're the ones sharing other stuff and, the big site recipes or the big site stories or, which is great, but give them an edge and go, hey, you do realize what I do, right?
Yeah.
Like you do realize that I do this and you know me. So share my stuff because I'm, I made this. You can trust this. This is not just generated for page views or to look pretty on Pinterest. This is legit. So you can tell people, I know the person that created this. I think it's easy for us not to do that, just as it's easy for our families to forget that we do this because we're their family member or we're their friend and they know us. And I think they just, that's just part of our whole package. Whereas you can go, hey, you know how last week you shared this pot roast recipe? I've got 3 that I think you would love. And I'm just saying, if you're wanting to share, you could give the love to me and you can tell people, I know this person.
What a great idea. Yes.
Yeah.
Very good advice. Okay, so I've got a couple of fun questions I love to ask here at the end of our discussion. So, okay, what's one food item you can't live without?
Oh, Chipotles and garlic. I know that's 2, but I cannot divide the 2.
Do you serve them together?
I do often serve them together. I love to simmer Chipotles and then throw some roasted garlic in there and maybe put that over chicken or just scoop it up with a chip or put it on like bread. Like I just love Chipotles and garlic. I have to have both at all times.
And so you just like simmer them in a stew or something like that and serve that?
Yeah, or I'll even literally put them in a saute pan and just break them down and get garlic all caramelized and the Chipotle gets all heated up and yummy and put that over some chicken or slather that on some crostini and go to town.
Ah, it's that nice smoky flavor. It's so good, right?
Yes. Yes. I'll roast a head of garlic just because I like the way it smells.
Oh.
And, my husband will come, oh, what are we having tonight? And I'm like, I roasted garlic because it smelled good. And I had some on some bread. What are you having?
You're on your own, right?
Yes, you're all on your own, buddy. Here's some cold roasted. I mean, I don't know. That is one of those things that just brings me like that deep, warm, glowy happiness inside. The smell of roasted garlic. I don't know. There's something, and I'm not Italian. I just love it.
Yeah. Is that an all year thing or is it mostly in the winter?
Well, down here in Katy, South Houston, we don't have winter. We have like 50 degrees. Yeah.
That's winter.
I'm still in like shorts and tank top and flip flops. That's winter.
Gotcha.
I can do that all year. Yeah. Like I will straight up, it can be 115 outside and I will still roast a head of garlic because I love the flavor. Now I may have to like go stick my head in the freezer because it's heated at my house.
Yes.
But I'll still do it.
Cool. I love it. Okay, cool.
Do it.
Awesome. Okay, so what's the favorite app on your phone?
Oh my gosh. Well, Instagram, hands down. But I just discovered Word Swag. And I love it.
I have that. Yeah.
Word Swag. I love that. It's so much fun.
Yes.
But Instagram is probably hands down my favorite because that is just my favorite social media.
Yes.
Because it's everyday. Like it's not, my Instagram is not curated.
Really? I love Instagram feeds like that.
I'm so glad. I went to this panel and it was phenomenal and it was 4 ladies who are incredibly successful, but their feeds are totally curated and they're gorgeous and I love looking at them.
Yes.
But I was like, yeah, no, that's not me.
I know.
No.
I want them to be a little more real.
Yes, I like to follow the real ones. And I do love to follow the beautiful ones, but I so much more enjoy seeing spur of the moment, or this is what I'm doing right now, or oh my gosh, look what I just made, or hey, my grill caught on fire. Because this was me like 2 years ago. We put salmon on the grill and it was a new grill and the grill caught on fire. And I couldn't stop laughing. So I put a picture of, we were doing salmon and asparagus and I did the asparagus inside. And I put a picture of the blackened, like char grilled, blackened ash salmon. And then I just split screen with our asparagus. And I said, when you have asparagus for dinner because you literally charbroiled your salmon. I mean, it like if you put a fork to it and it dissolved into ash.
My goodness.
And it turned out the grill was faulty. And so obviously we were trying the grill, but I couldn't stop laughing. And I was like, I have to share.
Yes.
Like, I totally have to share this. And people were like, oh my God, thank you so much. I'm so glad it's not just me. You know, it's like, I'm so glad that you're showing us something that's not delicious coming out of your kitchen. I'm like, well, the asparagus rocked. But yeah, the salmon was, we literally had asparagus for dinner, and I think my husband had some saltines. Because we had just moved into this house, and I hadn't really stocked everything yet. But salmon is the one food my entire family will eat. Like, hands down, no matter what, you could give my children salmon 7 days a week and they would thank you for it. So we moved in and I was like, all right, we're done with the pizza because we moved like 6 hours away and we had been driving basically back and forth for about 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And so we had done the pizza and the Chick-fil-A and the Taco Cabana, like everything you can imagine that's horrible. And all of us were like crying to detox our bodies. And so we were all so excited about the salmon and I splurged and got, oh my God, it was, I mean, I think it was like $50 that went up and flames on the grill. Terrible. Oh, it was so bad. It was so bad. I just couldn't stop laughing because I literally walked away for like a minute and whoosh. And the husband looks out and we have these big windows and he goes, I'm not really thinking there should be that much smoke on our back patio. Yeah. And I turned and it was like engulfed in flames, like just smoke everywhere. And I was like, oh my God. But then with my kids, have you heard of Presidents versus Aliens?
No. Is it a game?
Okay. It's an app. It's a game, but it teaches the kids the presidents. And so you can choose whether you do by faces or by history. We just check them all. So it throws out like quotes they've said or when they were president, but it's little cartoon faces of the presidents and asks you a question. There's usually like 5 faces and it's all the presidents. And if you answer correctly, it turns green and then you get to use the president's head to kill the aliens.
I love it. That is such a great game.
It is so much fun. And so like we'll be on road trips and my daughter's like, yes, I got Jimmy Carter. Or yes, I got, George Bush. Yes. Or I got William McKinley. And she's so funny because we were playing one day and I answered, she goes, really, Mom? You didn't know that Teddy Roosevelt said that? And I looked at her and I said, do you know how long it's been since I was in school? Like, you need to zip it, sister. But it's fun because my kids love playing it and I like it. And they're learning about the presidents and history and who was assassinated and who only served one term and who was Watergate and who was in the War of 1812. And they're having fun with it. And it's visual recognition as well as knowledge. So that is one that even when like I have to delete all the stuff off my phone because, I've taken 50,000 pictures.
Yes.
That app stays on there because we all like to play and you collect presidents. So every time you win and then you beat all the aliens for each little round, you get to collect your president. And so you get like the little presidents in it's so much fun.
I am going to get that because I love history. So that's cool.
Oh, then you'll love this. It's fun. And it's one of those that, you just kind of can't stop playing.
Yes.
Fun. And sometimes I learn things and I'll be like, yeah, I totally thought that was William McKinley. And it's, William Henry Harrison.
I love it. That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's great. And good for the whole family, it sounds like, too. So that's good, too.
Yes.
Okay. So do you have any time for TV at all? And if you do you have a favorite show?
We actually got rid of television about 3 years ago.
Wow.
So we do strictly Hulu and Netflix, which is awesome though, because my kids are addicted to like all the old school TV shows and they actually are in love with Schoolhouse Rock.
Oh, cool.
And so they'll watch those as much as they can. But my daughter and I love Once Upon a Time and my husband and I like The Walking Dead.
Okay, cool.
Yes. And then have you ever heard of, my kids they love Food Network, but they also love like the Style Networks. There's this show called Skin Wars, and it's on Netflix and Hulu. It is artists that do like airbrush design onto, so basically the models have on like pasties and, little nude panties.
Uh-huh.
And they do these incredibly intricate designs, and it's sort of like Project Runway, but they airbrush everything onto these models. It's phenomenally fascinating. And so we'll kind of watch that as well as a family. But yeah, we don't. So anytime anyone's like, "Oh, this new show," I have no clue what anyone's talking about. Or they're like, "Hey, that commercial, I got nothing for you." But it's awesome because as soon as we did that, my kids quit asking for toys because they're not getting bombarded with commercials.
That is such a good idea. Yes, I love that. And I think, especially in the school year.
Yes. Well, all these shows that I see on whatever the channel, Disney and Nick or whatever, I don't even know what the channels are now, that are geared towards like my kids' ages around, between 8 and 13. The kids not only are not those ages, but they are so smarmy and snarky and disrespectful to their parents and each other.
I hate that.
And
I agree.
And I do too. And I can see some of, not that I really saw that coming out in my kids, but I started to see little tendencies and we got rid of that and those went away.
Yeah.
And yet I see them in some of their friends and I'm like, what do you watch on TV? And they'll tell me and I'll go, I can tell.
Yeah, just this whole notion that adults are stupid and kids have to come in and save the day. I hate that.
I do too. And that's not how it is, but that's what's attracting these kids. And it's like subconsciously feeding them this just bogus, whatever. And then they get these little attitude and these little head gestures and things. I'm going, I saw that on that TV show, and I'm so glad we got rid of that.
Yes.
Like, my daughter will live on YouTube watching makeup tutorials, but not like pretty, let me make you gorgeous with the fake lashes. She wants to do like horror makeup. Like, I took her to see Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah. And
Chris Mann was the Phantom, and I've known him for several years. So he took time out and came and talked to us, and he showed her on his phone, like, how the makeup artist worked and all the, stuff that they did. And she was just, I want to do that. I want to do that. And so she'll come down and she has like gaping bloody wounds across her neck, or she's turned herself into Cheshire Cat, or any of these things. She'll spend hours up in her room doing that stuff.
Oh, that's really cool.
Instead of watching trashy TV.
I love it. Okay, yeah. Rachel, how can people find you online?
They can find me at my blog at southernfairytale.com, and on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, all that, Pinterest, I'm Southern Fairy Tale, but Southern has no vowels because Twitter has a
Twitter,
link
yes.
requirement. So, because Twitter. So it's STHRN Fairy Tale.
Got you. Love it. Okay, Rachel, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I had a wonderful time.
I did too. Thank you so much for having me. I was so thrilled. This was a blast.
Thanks to Rachel Matthews for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. Be sure to go to choppedpodcast.com to learn more about today's show. Thanks to everyone for your reviews of the podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and social media as well. All of this means a lot. It makes a big difference for the podcast. You inspire me, and I hope today's show was helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.